everybody, welcome to another video by Liminal Spaces. So today we're doing Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2 Episode 4, which is called Among the Lotus Eaters. This is the episode where when they go to a planet, a specific planet called Rigel 7, they forget everything. When you go to this planet, you forget everything. And that's a pretty cool premise, to be perfectly honest with you. That kind of sounds like a traditional Star Trek episode. I feel like this should be among one of my favorites, but it's got some issues. I do enjoy it, of course, but it's got some problems. Hi, Korra. My cat just opened the door. Do you want to come be on the camera, Korra? So this is Korra. She can open doors. She's a crazy good cat. Good job, Korra. So this episode is kind of based on Homer's Odyssey, I believe, is where it comes from. Where they get blown off course and they end up on this island where they're lost for a while and they need water. They find this island. They stop there to get fresh water. And they find this group of people that live there. And some of the crew actually eat some of the lotus flowers that they've been eating. And they don't forget everything. They just want to, I don't think they forget everything. They just want to stay there and not do anything. They don't want to get back on the ship. They don't want to do any work. They just want to lay there and eat lotus and do nothing, like the other people that are living on this island. And the captain, of course, comes and grabs him, whips him into shape, gets him back on the ship, and they all leave. I imagine it's a common thing. It would be a common thing for a captain to have to try to keep the crew on the ship, especially if you've been on the ship for a good 9 months and you find a place that you can dock and get resupplied, and there's indigenous people who live there, and your crew might just start scattering out into the woods. You know, you need to keep an eye on everybody and keep them together. So it's probably based on something like that. In this story, they literally forget who they are. They forget everything. They talk about how, I think they're trying to be a little bit scientific. They talk about how you don't forget how to walk. You don't forget really deep, important things like speaking. You don't forget how to speak, you know. But you forget all the surface stuff, basically. So that's an interesting premise. I think one of the big problems with this episode, honestly, is the B story, which unfortunately is Ortega's story. Ortega's doesn't get a lot of attention in this show, and I believe the reason that is true is because she's a character actor, and that is very different than all the leading actors that they have in this show. Right? She cannot do scenes like La'an can do or like Nurse Chapel can do. Right? She can't be in love with Kirk and realize she can never be with Kirk and have a big dramatic moment at the end. Right? She can't be in love with Spock and realize she can never be with Spock and be dramatic about it. That is not the way she works as an actor. She's a character actor, right? So she is probably the funniest person on the show, straight up, right? Even Carol Kane, I'll bet she could outdo Carol Kane, to be perfectly honest with you. Carol Kane is also a character actor, of course, right? And she's wonderful. She does amazing work. But Ortegas is really good at what she can do, you know? The scene in the beginning of this where she thinks she's going to be on the away crew, and she's got the hat on and she's walking down the hall and she's so excited. Like, that's genius. And none of the other actors could pull that off in this show. She's the only one that could do that. The problem is it doesn't really fit her character, right? She's a pilot, like a Top Gun kind of thing, right? And this episode is about how she decides that she doesn't really enjoy being a pilot, or subconsciously she's thinking that it's just too boring and she doesn't like it and she needs to do something else. But by the end, she realizes that she loves being a pilot. Like, none of that makes any sense at all. If you're a pilot, you're a pilot. Like, that's it. You know, and I could understand saying, I'm tired of flying this big ship, you know. I want something small and maneuverable. I need some action, right? I understand that you could get into that kind of stuff with a pilot, but not. I'd rather be on an away mission than piloting the ship. I mean, it didn't make a lot of sense, even though she did such an amazing job of it. But the crazy thing was, because of this weird plot that they'd set up, she didn't get to go on the away mission. So you've got this great actress who is so excited to do this, and then she has to be told no. So then she's just really disappointed. She's mad at Spock, and I mean, the whole thing is just this weird kind of mess that is not the kind of stuff that they need to be doing. I honestly believe that the writers haven't figured out how Ortega's works yet. They have not figured it out. I compare her, this is a horrible comparison, so I'm sorry, but I basically compare her to Hurley from Lost. I think that's his name, Hurley. Hurley is he's a character actor. He's not like the leads on the show. He doesn't do the big dramatic stuff, right? He does the comedic stuff. But when they really figured him out, when they got that Volkswagen bus and he was going down the hill and all that, brilliant stuff. And at that time, I believe he became most people's favorite character on the show. And I think the same thing will happen to her if they take the time to figure her out. And see, that's the problem. I think they figured out Hurley probably by season 3 or 4, I think it was, which means they had a good 100 episodes under their belt. They had done all kinds of things with Hurley before they really figured out exactly what he was doing. But for Ortega's, they've only had 20 episodes, right? Like, I'm really worried that this writing team, who has all the heart in the world, believe me, they know what they're doing, but I'm worried that they're not going to have the time to really figure out these characters and really make something that lasts, that truly lasts. Right now, they're just scratching the surface because they don't have a lot of experience. Literally, by this point in the show, they're about halfway through the first season of a normal show, you know? And the first seasons are always rocky, right? It takes a while to get that going. I'm hoping that just having those characters in your mind for a year or 2 years is kind of the same. It doesn't matter how many episodes you do. If you're just thinking about them and you know you're working on them, even when you're not working, I'm hoping that all of that sort of equals out, that they have been with this character for over 2 years now. Even though they've only done 20 episodes, that really won't make much of a difference, I hope. We'll find out, of course. One really cool thing that I really love about this episode is Rigel 7 is in the cage. The first episode, and Menagerie Part 1. The first episode they ever made for Star Trek, called The Cage. They had left Rigel 7 2 weeks ago, and 7 people were injured or killed. 3 people were killed. maybe 7 others were injured. They were only on the planet for 4 hours, and Pike is really shooken up and in trouble with his self-confidence because of how poorly this mission went on Rigel 7. The doctor comes in, gives him alcohol, they share a drink together, he tries to relax. It's all in the cage, right? And then from there, they go on to meet the aliens that mess with his mind and make him think he's somewhere else. And, you know, we all know the cage, right? So it's really neat that, and of course, the cage happened in season 2, I think, of Discovery. So, maybe that was even after the cage at that time. He goes back to that planet in season 2 of Discovery. So, the cage has already happened. We will never get the cage episode in Strange New Worlds because it already happened. And Rigel 7 happened 2 weeks before that. But now they're going back to Rigel 7 for the second time in order to find out how they contaminated the population. And I thought that was really fun. It's cool to have these callbacks. And I do want to say, I don't feel like this show needs to be really strict about following canon. And I know that that's kind of a blasphemous thing to say, but I do believe it's okay that we met La'an, right? It's even okay with me that they have cheated up the timeline. They've pushed the history of Star Trek further into our future so that it's still our future. Because back when they made the show, the future was the 80s, right? The future was the 90s, which is now way behind us. And of course, none of the things that they said would be happening at that time did happen because it's pretend, right? So it's nice that they're pushing it into the future again so that we can still pretend that that kind of stuff could happen. I think that dealing with something like that would always be tricky, right? If they made another Back to the Future, you know, it would be weird to try to show that what they had seen in the future actually happened, even though they were right about a couple things, or at least close to right. I know that the Cubs did go to the World Series. I think the Cubs went to the World Series the year... I'm going to mess this all up because I'm not a sports person. Back to the Future predicted that the Cubs would win the World Series. I don't remember what year they go to, but I believe the year that they predicted it, the Cubs did go to the World Series, but they didn't win. And then I think the next year they did go to the World Series again and they did win, or something like that. It was really close, which is really weird because I think they were just making a dumb joke, right? I think at the time that they were making that joke, the odds of the Cubs winning a World Series were very, very low. So it was just a dumb joke. But enough time had passed that they became a really good team, I guess, you know. So I don't mind things having to change because you're picking something up 50 years later or however long it's been, you know. It's okay with me that some things have to change. But it's also really fun to be able to tie things in from the past. That's super cool as well. I like both of them. To be perfectly honest with you, if I was in charge of something like this, which is silly, but if I was, I never would have done Pike, right? I mean, that just ties so many things so harshly together. I think they should have picked a bunch of people that we don't know at all and just had, you know, someone like Pike randomly show up every once in a while just for fun, right? But a total new cast, I think, a total new group of characters, I think would have been just a great choice. And I hate to say it, but even on another ship, right? And I know that not being on the Enterprise is rough. That's a tough thing, you know? But it's okay because they've had other shows where they're not on the Enterprise, of course. There's been several, in fact. So this episode was all right. I feel like that stuff with the B story, with Ortega's, just got a little bit crazy with her realizing that she really does like to be a pilot is just so weird. I don't know. I really hope they can figure her out and start writing stories for her that can make us really fall in love with that character. Because it'll be easy. Once they find it, it's easy because she is the everyman on the ship, right? Meaning those characters like Pike and Spock and La'an and Nurse Chapel and Dr. Mbenga, those characters are people that we would want to be. People that that we would strive to be like, right? They're very intelligent and they're very good looking and they're very hardworking and they do the right dramatic things and they make epic choices and right. It's everything that we like to watch and aspire to. Ortega's is more like what we are, and that makes her closer to us than any of the other characters. And when they figure her out, she's going to be the go-to every time, I swear. But they got to figure that out. And that's tough. You know, what are they going to do? Are they going to bring her family on board the ship? Or are they going to have her get a pet? Like, I don't know. You know, I mean, Data's kind of that way too, right? Data is more of a character actor than a kind of a leading man sort of thing. And that's an interesting thing because he is playing a robot. So that really limits his ability to do things anyway. I really don't actually know where that actor lands. I assume he's a character actor. That would be my guess. But Data makes it hard to tell, right? But he did a great job of Data, obviously, right? So I believe he probably is a character actor. But Data's kind of like that too. Once they really figured him out and they were able to do things with Data that we could kind of understand, Data was kind of our way in, you know? And I think that's what they wanted to do with Wesley. I think Wesley wanted to be the way in, but that was kind of too difficult. I feel like I've kind of always felt like Wesley was cast just a little bit too old. And I think that caused kind of a problem for that character, for the writers. If he had been like 3 years younger, I think that the world would have felt very different about Wesley Crusher, even though everybody loves him now, which is great. And I think they should. I think that it was a great character. The actor did a great job. And the actor's still successful in doing other things, which is wonderful. I think that a little bit younger probably would have done better for the writing crew. The problem would be, of course, then the director would have to deal with a child on the set. I mean, he already was a child, but I mean like a real child on the set, which can be a little bit tough. But yeah, I hope they figure her out. I really do. So let's rate this thing. For science, an asteroid hit the planet. It has an unknown element that is spewing out this kind of radiation that makes you forget. I kind of like this stuff. You know, like I was saying, I feel like this really should be one that's kind of at the top of my list. I'm going to probably go with about an 8 for science. You know, I kind of like it. They run off into the asteroid field to get away from the planet. But it turns out that there's more of the stuff in the asteroid field. So that makes everybody forget. They make a really bad choice to run to there instead of just going beyond everything. So I'm not sure about that choice. I don't know if but Spock was sort of losing it. So I don't know. It's a tough thing. So I'm going to go like an 8 with science. Philosophy, I enjoyed the philosophy in this. I like the idea of somebody saying, I don't want my memories. but they don't know what their memories are. So it's hard to say. And then, of course, when they get their memories back, they realize that they did want their memories. They do want them. Pike does remove the problem from the planet. They literally take the asteroid off the planet. So everyone gets their memories back, whether they want to or not. Right? And it was hurting the society. That's for sure. But it that's an interesting choice, and they make a little joke about it. Spock wants to kind of bring it up, but then he doesn't. He kind of backs off a little bit. So yeah, interesting philosophy there. The importance of memories and how they shape you and make you who you are. So I'll probably go a 9 with philosophy. So we've got an 8 and a 9. For heart, they're not there yet. Not with, and I would not expect to say this, but they are not there with Ortega's. And in this episode also, Lon gets hurt. So the whole time she's like on a stretcher going, I'm not going to die, which is not what you expect from the head of security on Star Trek. So I don't know. The heart was kind of low on this. I'm probably going to go like a 5. You do see Pike and Zach. And Zach is one of the people that Pike thought died in that mission 2 weeks before the cage. But they get there and they find out that he didn't die and he is the problem. So you've got this character that Pike thought was dead being a total jerk, right? A total jerk the whole time. And then Pike, in order to save La'an, attacks him. And he's lost all his memories, but he knows he's got to save this person. He attacks the guy and is about to kill him before his memories come back. And right when his memories come back, he says, I'm not going to kill you, Zach. And Zach says, I told you this planet would change you. And he says, the planet does not change you. The planet simply makes you see who you really are. Which is a very dramatic, weird thing to say, right? That's cool, but I don't know how actually epic that is in any way. Like Pike would kill to save his crew. I kind of believe that, I don't. He didn't know who Zach was. You can argue, but Zach is his crew, but he didn't know who Zach was, so it didn't matter. Yeah, I feel like Pike figured out that he should be the captain of a starship. You know what I mean? Which is like, yeah, good one. So I don't know. Not a lot of heart in this episode. It tries, but it's just not there. So I'm probably going to go a 5 for heart. And for mystery, I'm probably going to go like... This is where I feel like the episode kind of failed the most, is with the mystery of going to this planet, losing all your memories, and not understanding what's happened or why it's happened. And if there's a ship in the sky, like, would you remember that space travel is possible? Would you remember stars? Like, I wanted this to be almost like a first contact thing for the people that beamed down. Like, there's lots of places they could go to really up the mystery of this episode. And I don't feel like they went anywhere. They just have them black out. And then they're like, I don't know. I'm scared. I'm dumb. So I'll probably go like a 6 for mystery. So I think we've got 6 and 5, which is 11. And then we've got 9, which throws it up to 20. And then I think I said 8. So maybe 28, let's say. So not bad. Out of 40, I'd probably give this episode a 7, I guess. It's all right. It just let me down a tiny bit. I think it's got everything it needs. It's just not firing on all cylinders yet. It is not quite there yet. But it's an all right episode. It's pretty good. Okay, so that's number 4. So we've got 6 more before the new season comes out, which we have no idea when the new season's coming because of the writer's strike and all that stuff. So we got plenty of time, I'm thinking. One thing I do want to bring up is the Ring, a box set of the Ring comes out on March 9th, I think, somewhere in there. It's the American version of the film. Of course, there's already a box set for the Japanese version of the film. We are definitely going to be covering the American version of the film. It's about 3 weeks out. I'm just really excited about it, so I'm bringing it up. So that is coming. That may replace a Star Trek for a week, or maybe 2, because there's like 3 or 4 films in the box set. So we'll be doing a lot of that kind of stuff, which I think is super fun. Also, Last Airbender comes out like tomorrow on Netflix, the live action version of The Last Airbender, which we're also going to talk about. I think that'll be super fun. I know that that's more of a fantasy thing, I guess. Chris and I were talking about it. More of a fantasy thing than a science fiction thing. So, and that's okay, because of course there's nothing wrong with fantasy on this channel, right? Which is super cool. So, if you enjoy this, hit the like button. If you want more stuff like this and the stuff I was just talking about, make sure to definitely subscribe so you know when more things are coming. We do put out a lot of videos, so it's good to subscribe so that you're aware of all the new stuff that's coming. And thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.